Hi, 2026 keeps delivering, especially if you're into isometric games. This perspective feels like it's having a real comeback. Developers are experimenting, mixing genres, adding new mechanics, and still remembering what made these games great in the first place. Today, I've put together a list of the most interesting new isometric games, from tactical RPGs and Diablo-like titles to survival games and more experimental projects. So get comfortable, you might just find your next time sink right here. Let's start with Nova Roma. This is one of those cases where a classic city builder suddenly feels fresh again. At first, everything seems familiar. You build districts, manage resources, collect taxes, and grow your city. But then the game starts throwing in its own ideas, and you're no longer just a manager, you're more like a priest and a ruler at the same time. The gods actually matter here. Want bonuses? Fulfill their demands, build temples, earn their favor. Now you're not just expanding, you're balancing economy, faith, and citizen happiness. Everything feels intuitive, building is smooth, and the game doesn't get in your way when experimenting with layouts. You can literally watch your city come to life. The resource loop is addictive. Not enough bread, expand farms, too many grapes, start producing wine. MENACE. This is a game about cold calculation and tactics, where one mistake can cost you the entire mission. And the first thing you notice is the AI. It's not dumb, it doesn't play nice. It genuinely tries to outsmart you. Enemies suppress your units, flank you, set up ambushes, and combine vehicles with infantry. Constantly feels like you're fighting a real opponent, not just scripted behavior. The turn system is what really stands out. You move one unit, then the enemy moves one, and that creates constant tension. Action points force you to think ahead. You can't just run in and shoot. Every move has to be planned. Add vehicles with full loadouts, different enemy types, and a morale system that can break your squad, and you get a game where every mission tells its own story. Solasta II. This is a game that doesn't try to be the next Baldur's Gate. It just confidently does its own thing and does it well. Everything here is built around classic Dungeons and Dragons. Dice rolls, checks, tactics, positioning. If you like combat where it's not just clicking enemies but actually thinking about height, lighting, and abilities, this is for you. At the same time, it feels like a polished version of the first game. Familiar, but smoother and more refined. The biggest improvement is in presentation and characters. Their shared past, roles within the group, personalities. All of this makes the dialogue feel more alive. It's not top-tier CRPG depth, but there's definitely something to latch onto. Plus, you've got a global map with events, solid visuals, and a real sense of adventure. AETHUS. At first, this might look like just another survival game, but pretty quickly you realize it's not really about survival at all. It's more of a story-driven adventure disguised as resource gathering and base building. You explore an underground world, collect materials, expand your outpost, but all of that mainly serves to push the story forward. The gameplay is very smooth and well thought out. Gathering resources with a drone feels especially satisfying. It's fresh and responsive. Crafting makes sense, progression is clear, and your base keeps growing with more options over time. There are also tons of quality-of-life features that genuinely save you time and frustration. Toward the end, there's a bit of grind and extra backtracking, but the story carries you all the way through. Displaced. Here, you land on an island, grab a blunt weapon, and start methodically destroying everything in sight. Houses, cars, fences, furniture. Almost everything can be broken, and it gives you this weird but very satisfying sense of progression. Every object you destroy means resources, experience, and forward momentum. The game really hooks you with this loop. Explore, gather, craft, upgrade. And there's an important twist: resources and enemies don't respawn. So you can't just farm one area forever, you have to keep moving forward. Toward the late game, it can get a bit repetitive, especially if you're clearing everything, but the first dozens of hours are incredibly engaging. Dragonkin the Banished. Another entry in the Diablo-like genre, but with some interesting ideas. At first glance, it's all familiar: isometric view, hordes of enemies, loot, progression. But once you dive into the skill system, things get much more interesting. The linking mechanics, ability combinations, and build crafting open up a lot of room for experimentation. You're not just picking skills, you're building your own combat machine. Combat feels dynamic and easy to read without being overwhelming, which makes it a great after-work game to relax and clear some maps. There are already early signs of an endgame system similar to an AETHUS where you control difficulty and rewards. Cleared Hot. This is a perfect pick if you've been missing those old-school helicopter arcade games. It really captures the spirit of the classic Strike series, just with a modern twist. The controls feel great, especially on a gamepad. You're not fighting the game, you're just flying, shooting, and having fun. But the real highlight here is the physics and the hook. You can grab almost anything: cars, containers, rockets, even enemies, and use them as weapons. The gameplay constantly throws situations at you where you can get creative. You can play it straight and shoot everything, mow enemies down with your rotor blades, or lean into physics and improvisation. Missions are varied: defense, escort, evacuations, even boss fights. Yeah, helicopter balance isn't perfect yet, and the visuals can feel a bit too cartoony at times, but that's part of the charm. This isn't about realism, it's about fun and nostalgia. Cinderia is a fast, aggressive roguelike that's all about tempo and control. There are no long pauses, no dragged-out runs. You're always in motion, chaining abilities, building your setup, and tearing through enemies. The controls are very responsive, and enemy attacks are clearly telegraphed, so you almost always understand why you took damage. That said, the game currently feels like a foundation for something bigger. There is build variety, different skills, playstyles, combinations, but you start seeing repeating patterns pretty quickly. The difficulty is also a bit mixed. On one hand, it's nice that the game doesn't punish you too hard. On the other, it reveals everything it has a bit too fast. Still, the potential here is huge. Even now, the gameplay feels great and runs are quick and addictive. HumanitZ is a zombie survival game that doesn't try to overwhelm you with hardcore realism. You're not some helpless victim of the apocalypse, you're someone who can actually fight back. There are weapons, vehicles, base building, co-op, and it all comes together into a solid sandbox where you decide how to survive. You can play stealthy, go full combat, or just build a secure base and live your way. But once you get going, some issues start to show. The balance isn't perfect. Once you get decent weapons and a vehicle, the tension drops a lot. Zombies aren't the smartest, base defense becomes too easy thanks to the environment, and survival slowly turns into routine. The map is big and there's a lot to do, but it's not always clear what the long-term goal is. The game definitely needs more content, stronger challenges, and a better endgame loop. Kloa, Child of the Forest, is a gripping story about a dying forest and a young girl trying to save it. At first, it looks like a cute pixel art adventure, but pretty quickly you realize there's a darker side. A curse is corrupting the land, twisting animals into aggressive creatures, and beneath all that natural beauty, there's a constant sense of unease. Gameplay-wise, it's a classic isometric action game. You've got melee combat with a katana, ranged combat with a bow, dodging, parrying, and combos. Everything feels fast, responsive, and satisfying. There are also puzzles and exploration that break up the combat and give you room to breathe. And progression is there too: new abilities, upgrades, and different ways to play. Alarial's Blessing. This is a more serious, story-driven experience disguised as a classic JRPG. You travel with a group of 3 mercenaries, take on jobs, and live what seems like a simple life, but slowly you realize there's something much bigger behind it all. The story is the core here. Relationships, choices, consequences. Everything builds that feeling of a real journey where your decisions matter. The combat is also worth highlighting. These aren't just basic turn-based fights. Each encounter feels like a small puzzle. There are no random battles, and every fight is carefully designed, almost like a mini-boss, where positioning and reading the enemy are key. On top of that, there are no quest markers. You rely on notes, rumors, and your map. It makes the game a bit more demanding, but also much more immersive. Terrinoth, Heroes of Descent. This is a classic dungeon crawler that feels like it came straight off a tabletop. And that's no coincidence. The game is based on a board game series, and you can really feel it. Everything revolves around your party, positioning, and smart use of abilities. You've got a roster of heroes with different roles, and your main goal is to build a team that actually works together. Combat is fairly accessible, but not shallow. You don't need to memorize a ton of rules, just understand the basics: elevation, line of sight, and ability synergy. And before you know it, you're planning every move. Missions aren't dragged out, there's a story, dialogue, and progression between runs. It's not some ultra-deep RPG, it's more of a comfortable tactical adventure that works especially well in co-op. Arkheron. This one is a completely different experience. It's not about relaxed exploration, it's all about pressure and surviving against other players. You and your team climb a tower, fight monsters, run into other squads, and every mistake can cost you the entire run. The pace is fast, decisions have to be made quickly, and the situation is constantly changing. The most interesting part is the relic system. That's what defines your playstyle. You're basically building your setup on the fly during each match, combining effects, adapting to what you find, even completely changing your approach mid-run. You can commit to a full set for a powerful build, but lock yourself into it or stay flexible and keep switching things up. As a result, every match feels different. Crystalfall. This is a classic loot-driven action game with a strong focus on build crafting. You start with a basic character, and from there it turns into a full-on sandbox of systems. Skills, talents, gear, everything can be combined, reworked, and upgraded. And progression isn't just linear, skill trees are procedurally generated, so each run can play out differently. The core loop is diving into procedural dungeons, farming, upgrading, and doing it all over again. But thanks to the flexibility of builds, it doesn't feel repetitive. You're constantly experimenting, looking for new combinations, adapting to what drops. On top of that, there's endgame content, seasons, multiplayer, everything you need for long-term replayability. Wonderia. This one is a much more relaxed experience, focused on creativity and exploration rather than hardcore survival. You land on a new planet and basically decide what to do with it. You can build a base, grow a settlement, explore biomes, gather resources, or just chill with farming and collecting strange creatures. The world is procedurally generated and constantly changing, so there are no strict boundaries. You can also play with friends, which adds a lot more fun and chaos. The manga-inspired art style helps a lot too. Everything looks colorful and a bit wild. This isn't about challenge or pressure. It's about exploration, creativity, and a laid-back adventure you'll want to come back to. Ruiner 2 feels like an evolution, not just a sequel. It's still the same dirty, neon-soaked hell of Ragnarok, but now with a much deeper system. The key feature here is the shell system. You're no longer tied to a single character. Instead, you build a roster of combat bodies and switch between them on the fly. You chain abilities, create combos, adapt to the situation, and combat starts to feel like a fast-paced puzzle. At the same time, the game doesn't forgive mistakes. It's fast, aggressive, and brutal. Stop moving, and you're dead. Add risk-based crafting, resource management, co-op, and an endless endgame, and you've got a very strong foundation. If the first game was all about style, the second one is clearly aiming for both style and depth. The Ranchers. This feels like an attempt to take a cozy farming sim and turn it into a full open-world sandbox. You're not just growing crops and feeding chickens, you're building an entire system: farming, production, trading, contracts, progression. You can live a calm life developing your ranch, or head out into the world for exploration, resources, and adventure. You can build pretty much anywhere, develop your character in different directions, play in co-op, trade through an auction system, and take part in events. There's also a social side. Villagers have their own lives, and you can build relationships with them, even start a family. Songs of Glimmerwick. This is a very warm and unique RPG where magic is tied to music. You don't just cast spells, you play them. Every melody is an ability. Summon rain, talk to nature, unlock new paths. Because of that, the game feels really fresh, since the mechanics are directly tied to the atmosphere. At its core, it's a cozy life sim set in a magical university. Classes, friends, clubs, festivals, exploring the island. Everything comes together into a calm, almost meditative experience. There's no rush, no pressure. You just live in this world and slowly uncover its secrets. It's a great pick if you want something relaxing with a unique idea behind it. Tattered Banners. This isn't just a tactical RPG, it's a true sandbox driven by consequences. The world lives on its own, and everything you do actually matters. Burn a farm. A nearby town suffers famine. Refugees appear, crime rises. Help trade routes, cities grow stronger, armies expand. You're not just watching it happen, you're shaping it. At its core, it's a game about mercenaries and choices. You can play as an honorable company or become a real problem for the entire region. Raid, spy, manipulate, sabotage, and all of that unlocks new opportunities, missions, and even mechanics. Combat is classic turn-based, but the real impact comes from context, where you fight, who you fight for, and why. A very interesting project, especially if you like games where the world reacts to you. Alabaster Dawn. This is one of the most ambitious projects on the list. Right away, you can tell it's inspired by Crosscode, but it clearly goes further. This isn't just an action game. It's a mix of fast-paced combat, puzzles, and a full RPG with world progression. You're not just clearing levels, you're literally bringing life back to a ruined world, rebuilding settlements, opening new paths, and shaping the environment. The combat system looks especially promising. For elements, a wide range of weapons, the ability to switch styles mid-fight, it all creates a very dynamic and flexible experience. Add progression systems, gems, skills, even cooking. It's deep without feeling overwhelming. And if everything comes together, this could easily become one of the strongest isometric RPGs in the coming years. LumenTale, Memories of Trey. This is a cozy yet fairly large-scale monster collector with a strong focus on story. You travel across the world, collect creatures, grow them, and slowly uncover the mystery of your past. But it's not just about catch them all, it's about the connection with these creatures. They're tied to emotions and their interaction with the world, which adds a bit more depth. Gameplay-wise, it's familiar, capturing creatures, progression, tactical battles with elemental strengths, and team synergy. There's co-op, trading, base development, everything you'd expect for a long-term experience. But thanks to its atmosphere and presentation, it feels more alive than just another clone of the genre. That's the list, and honestly, isometric games feel like they're in a really strong place right now. The genre keeps evolving. Some games focus on deep mechanics, others on atmosphere, and some just go all in on fun and experimentation. And the best part, many of these games are still evolving, which means a year or two from now, some of them could turn into something much bigger than they look today. The Image Game Channel was with you. Have a nice day.